Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Our webinar is about to start here. The Association of Marketing Service Providers is pleased to present today's webinar program entitled Full Service IMB, Ready or Not? And I hope the answer is more ready than not. Full Service Intelligent Mail barcodes will be required by January 26th next year to qualify for automation discounts. So understanding full service so that you can achieve the maximum discount possible to save you and your customers money is the purpose of today's webinar. I am Leo Raymond, AMSP's VP for Postal Member Affairs, and I'll be your moderator. Please note that today's call is being recorded, and all participant lines will be muted during the broadcast. You may receive technical assistance by sending an email to Michelle M. Raymond, that's M as in Michelle Raymond, at amsp.org, and we'll be happy to give you some help promptly. There's also a chat feature built into the webinar for questions or requests for technical assistance. We have a highly qualified staff here. That would include Michelle and Tyler over there, our able-bodied staff, who will be happy to help you out and get you connected. Today's presentation will last no more than 60 minutes and includes time for questions. You may ask questions at any time throughout the webinar using the webinar chat system in the dialog box, which should be to the right of your webinar screen. If you can't locate the chat box, once again, just email Michelle. That's mraymond@amsp.org, and we'll help you find it. You may ask questions at any time using this feature, but please be aware that they will not be answered until the end of the presentation. Today's webinar is made possible through the support of AMSP partner AccuZip. AccuZip is a national software company that develops products and services to help streamline data management and simplify the multi-channel communications process. For over 22 years, AccuZip Incorporated has earned an outstanding reputation with our partners and the industry, built on its core values of service, loyalty, innovation, excellence, and integrity. AccuZip is also the sponsor for our Postal Points webinars, which I hope you also tune into every 3 weeks. And now it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter. Joining us is Garrett Hoyt, Manager Mail Entry at the Postal Service. Garrett began his career in 1985 as a clerk in Milwaukee and has been in mail acceptance almost his entire career. Garrett's currently responsible for all policies and procedures related to the acceptance of business mail. So without any further delay, I'll turn the webinar over to Garrett to make sure that we have sufficient time for questions and answers at the end. So Garrett, take it away. Or do we have a technical snafu here? So there we go. Garrett?
Okay, I am here, although the slide disappeared from me. I don't know if everyone else can see it.
Yeah, we had a little hiccup over here on this end too. It's that computer stuff.
Okay.
So Garrett, perhaps you give everybody an overview of what you're going to talk about today and how it fits into larger plans for informing customers about full service.
Yeah, that sounds real good. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to you all again on about full service and where we're headed and really, you know, how the full service mail is going to you know, help with some of the other initiatives that we have moving forward. But today I wanted to talk about. I kind of looked at this presentation as a foundational presentation. I think we're going to start with the basics and really you know, talk about things about related to eDoc and terminology. Talk a little bit about the business customer gateway and you know, how to access you know, how to obtain a mailer ID and those types of things, and then show you how to access some of the reports that are available. But and then at the end of the call, you know, we have a number of webinars that we're providing that I think you know, as I mentioned, this is the foundation. These other webinars will act as you know, building a pyramid, if you will, of you know, providing all this information on what full service can do for both the Postal Service and definitely our customers.
And Garrett, I think we've got things working for you here now.
Okay. Let's see if this works here.
You said very confidently.
Okay, so click that. Now if I click there.
There you go.
There we go.
All right. Okay. So as I was mentioning, and I do have quite a few number of slides today. to talk through. And so if I start moving too quick, definitely send a message to our friends on the staff here, and they can send me a message to slow down. As I mentioned, the agenda today, we'll talk about the full service requirements related to the intelligent mail barcodes, and we'll talk about the electronic documentation. I want to talk about the technologies that are available to provide us this information electronically. So we'll talk briefly about the Mail.dat and the Mail.XML file formats, as well as the Postal Wizard, which is a way, a certified way, if you will, to get us electronic information to meet that full service requirement. We'll talk about full service mailing solutions and what we've done to, not only what we've done, but what the software community has done to help promote full service moving forward. We'll talk about as I mentioned, the business customer gateway access and the steps that are required to obtain a mailer ID. And then we'll also talk about some of the reports that are available today in support of the July date that was identified in the Federal Register around being able to perform this electronic verification around the data quality within the Mail.dat and the Mail.XML files. So we definitely want to show you how to start to take a look, how you're able to start taking a look at that information today. There we go. So real quick, in the Federal Register notice, it was announced that beginning in January 26th of 2014, that only full-service intelligent mail will be eligible or qualify for the automation prices. So the classes that are eligible for full service are the first class mail, cards, letters, and flats, the standard mail, letters and flats, the periodical letters and flats, and then finally the bound printed matter flats. There are a few exceptions to this rule, and the following are eligible for full service but are not required to use it to qualify for the carrier route prices. And those would be the standard mail, basic carrier route flats, the high density carrier route flats, the high density plus carrier out flats, and then the periodical carry out flats. As we move down the slide, the following are not eligible for full service even when the pieces are barcoded with an intelligent mail barcode. And those would be the standard mail saturation carrier out flats, the bound printed matter carry out flats, or destination delivery unit, or abbreviation DDU entered flats. And then finally the business reply mail, qualified business reply mail, the QBRM, the courtesy reply mail, or the permit reply mail. You should note that although the QBRM and the BRM do not qualify for full service, both are still required to have an intelligent mail barcode on the piece. On April 18th of 2013, the Postal Service posted the final rule Federal Register notice, which outlines the requirements for January of 2014. To access this final notice in its entirety, we do have it. You can go to either the Federal Register webpage, which is the www.federalregister.gov. And we also have it posted on our RIBS page, which is the ribs.usps.gov. And within that Federal Register notice, you'll see all of these requirements will be listed within that Federal Register rule. There we go. So moving forward, as I mentioned, I wanted to make this more of a foundational presentation. I wanted to talk a little bit about the common terms and definitions that we use when describing full service. So when we talk about electronic documentation, or more commonly referred to as eDoc, that is a process that allows mailers to submit that mailing information, such as the postage statements, the qualification reports, and other required documentation electronically to the USPS through our Postal One system, which in the end expedites our acceptance and payment verification processes. If I guess the other way to be able to present this information to us was hard copy, and I guess that was most people did that many years ago. But with full service mailers, we cannot accept hard copy postage statements. So mailers must submit their postage statements and their mailing documentation electronically using one of the eDoc methods described that we'll talk about later on in this presentation. Next is the term a permit. And the permit is a paying account that's issued by the Postal Service, which authorizes a customer to mail at commercial rates. This is how customers pay for postage. Mailers must hold a permit and pay an annual mailing fee at every business mail entry, unit, or post office where they want to enter and pay for commercial mail. The next term that we use quite frequently is a CRID, or a Customer Registration ID. And that is a unique ID number that is issued by the Postal Service to identify a customer's physical business location, or maybe better said, is a specific address. There are several uses for this CRID. The Postal Service uses this ID to link mailing events to a mailer's business location. In addition, the CRID is used to determine the recipient of full service feedback data and provides access to a variety of reports. And we'll talk about those reports a little later in the presentation. Mailers can use this ID in their eDoc files to identify the submitter of that eDoc. They can also use this mailer ID to identify the mail owner and or the mail preparer within the eDoc. Lastly, the mailer ID, or the MID, is a 6-digit or 9-digit number issued by the Postal Service to a mail owner or mail service provider based on calendar year mail volume, as verified by the volume that's reported in Postal 1. The MID is used in intelligent mail barcodes to identify mail owners and mail preparers within the eDoc and to determine to whom mailing information reports should be distributed. So the CRID and the MID are two key components in being able to identify with whom mailing information should be distributed. So now we've talked about those terms, let's talk about some of the key full service requirements. I think most of us are aware that the full service requires the intelligent mail barcodes, and they require the electronic documentation. So the intelligent mail barcodes are required for, of course, for the mail pieces, the trays or sack labels, and then finally the containers. As we will discuss, the barcodes at all levels generally must be unique with certain exceptions, and we'll talk about those exceptions moving forward. The electronic documentation, or the eDoc, is also required for full-service mailings. As I mentioned, the eDoc is a method in which mailers can send mailing information, such as the postage statements and qualification reports, electronically to the Postal Service through Postal 1. Some of the key eDoc requirements we will discuss include the identification of the eDoc submitter, and then the identification of the mail owner and the mail preparer, more commonly known as the by-for relationship in the eDoc, as well as a specific specification of barcode information such as the mailer ID and the customer registration ID, or CRID, within each eDoc submission. Well, let's first take a look at the pieces. So I thought we'd break down the barcode just real quick, just to give as we start talking about the requirements around the uniqueness. So the intelligent mail barcode on the piece consists of 31 digits, comprised of 5 intelligent mail barcode fields, which are required for full service. The barcode ID is a 2-digit field that most often contains a default of 00. When it has a value other than 00, it indicates optional endorsement line information. So a mail piece includes OEL information to specify the level of sortation of a bundle of mail. As an example, if within those first two characters you had the number 30 was in that OEL code, it would indicate a 3-digit sortation to us. And when we start to think about, or when I start to think about, uses of the data from a postal perspective, where we start to capture all information based on scans, we start right off the get-go. We start to understand how this piece of mail was identified in the eDoc as being prepared, for instance. More information is in the barcode identifier document that's available on our RIBS website at the ribs.usps.gov. The service type ID indicates class of mail and additional services that were requested, such as tracing or address correction service. At a minimum, it designates the mail class, as in the example of 300, which would indicate that the piece was first-class mail. The service type ID should not be 000. We should not see that. The mailer ID is populated with the mailer ID obtained from the USPS, and as I mentioned before, it can be the mail owner, the mail preparer, or any other stakeholder within that supply chain. The serial number is a numbering sequence assigned by the mailer. And then the routing code identifies a valid delivery point address. This field must never be padded with zeros, spaces, or nulls. Under the full service option, mailers are required to use unique intelligent mail barcodes for the mail pieces and the handling units, which again are the trays and stacks, and keep those barcodes unique for 45 days. So let me talk a little bit more about the uniqueness requirement around preparing the full service mailings. For full service, the intelligent mail barcode must be unique, as we said. The barcode uniqueness for the mail pieces is determined through the combination of 3 fields, and those are highlighted on this slide here. They are the service type ID, the mailer ID, and the the serial number. Full service mailings must use the unique intelligent mail barcodes that don't repeat for 45 days from the date the mailing is accepted into the mail stream. Now, there is an exception to this uniqueness requirement, and it's not one that is widely known. And, well, I guess I was saying that maybe a month or two ago, and maybe at this point it is a little bit more well known. But for mailings that contain fewer than 10,000 pieces, where the postage is affixed to the piece at the correct price, or all mail pieces are identical weight and separated by price. In these conditions, mailers may use identical barcode serial numbers on all mail pieces within the single mailing. And in order to meet a uniqueness requirement, we say that the barcode serial number must maintain uniqueness across mailings for 45 days, meaning you could use the same serial numbers on all pieces within that 10,000 piece mailing, but we would ask that you do not repeat that same serial number on additional mailings until 45 days have elapsed. Let's talk a little bit about the service type ID, because that service type ID is another requirement for the intelligent mail barcode. The service type ID is a 3-digit code to identify the class of mail and any additional or special services requested by the mail piece, such as the ACS, the address correction, and the mail piece tracking. The intelligent mail barcode on the mail piece must contain the accurate service type code in order for the Postal Service to effectively process the mail piece per the service standard of the mail class and to fulfill the services requested, such as ACS and tracking. There is a table available of service type IDs on that RIBS website, which again is at ribs.usps.gov under Intelligent Mail. The service type ID table shows which 3-digit code to use in the mail piece barcode to indicate the following things. So we have a table that would indicate that you would use to indicate the class of mail, the type of address change service that you're requesting, whether the mailing is full service or not, or whether the mail piece tracking, the IMB tracing, is requested. So again, all of those, the service type IDs for, that would identify the 3-digit codes to indicate those following, those previous things, would be located in that table, located on ribs. Talk about the mailer ID. The mailer ID, or the MID, is used within that intelligent mail barcode of a mail piece, a tray, or container in combination with that service type ID and serial number to maintain barcode uniqueness. The MID can either be a 6 or a 9-digit numeric code assigned to a mail owner or mail service provider by the Postal Service. We talked a little bit earlier about the having volume requirements related to the MIDs. The 6-digit MID are assigned to the mail owners or mail service providers whose annual volume is greater than 10 million pieces. And the 6-digit MIDs, 6-digit mailer IDs, begin with either a 0 through 8. The 9-digit MIDs are assigned to mail owners or MSPs whose annual volume is less than 10 million. And those 9-digit mailer IDs will begin with the number 9. Mail owners and mail service providers may qualify for multiple 9-digit MIDs based on annual volume increments of 1 million pieces. Together, the mailer ID and the serial number determine barcode uniqueness for handling units and containers. For mail pieces, the service type ID is used in conjunction with the mailer ID and the serial number. A little bit later on in the presentation, we'll talk about how to actually get a MID if you do not have one already. Let's talk a little bit about the uniqueness at the tray barcode or sack barcode for the handling units. The 24-digit barcode on tray labels is what uniquely identifies each tray and sack as it makes its way through the Postal Service's mail processing and transportation networks. In addition to the zip code and the content identifier number, or the SIN code, the 24-digit intelligent mail tray barcode includes a mailer ID and a serial number, which provide a variety of tracking and reporting benefits to mailers. Let's take a look at the components of that tray and sack barcode. The 5-digit zip code identifies the tray or the sack's destination. So that one we're probably most familiar with. The content ID, or the SIN code, describes the contents of the tray or the sack with a 3-digit content identifier number. For example, 242 is the SIN number for trays of first-class letters, pre-sorted at the 5-digit level. So within the domestic mail manual, there is a table. It's actually in section 708.6, and I won't give you all the other numbers, but if you go to the DMM 708.6, you'll be able to identify the table of all the SIN codes. The processing code describes the type of mail that's being processed. Number 1 is used for automation-compatible, barcoded, and machinable mail, while number 7 is used for all other mail. The mailer ID is the 6 or the 9-digit number that we just talked about in the previous slide. That's the 6 or 9-digit MID. The serial number is a unique 5 or 8-digit number, depending on if you have the 6 or the 9-digit MID. This field allows mailers to uniquely number the intelligent mail tray barcodes. And then finally, the label type is a 1-digit field used as a qualifier for systems to recognize and parse the data within this barcode. The value is 1 when used with the 6-digit mailer ID, or 8 when it's used with the 9-digit mailer ID. There we go. So now let's talk a little bit about the uniqueness at the container barcode level. Oop, I think we jumped a slide here. I'm hesitant to try to reverse it, so I'm going to leave it right where it is. The intelligent mail barcode is applied to the mailer-generated container labels, and these are the barcodes that is designed to be scanned at acceptance. You've heard me talk about e-induction in the past. That's that process we've created around leveraging the information within the eDoc to get rid of the hard copy 8125s and 8017s. This is the barcode that is scanned upon arrival of that container. There are four sections of data within the container barcode. There's the application identifier, which is a 2-digit field which indicates the source of the barcode, and that value must always be 99. The type indicator is a 1-character field which indicates a mailer-generated barcode, because we use the 99M internally as well. The value must be set to M to indicate that it is a mailer-generated barcode. There's the mailer ID, which is in that container barcode, and that identifies the mail owner, the mail preparer, or any other stakeholder in the supply chain. One of the questions that we get frequently is, whose MID should we put in that container barcode? And again, it could be the mail owner, mail preparer, or any other stakeholder in that mailing. And then finally, the serial number is again, it's mailer assigned number. It's a unique 9 or 12-digit number depending on the mailer ID length. That's what maintains the uniqueness of each container for tracking purposes. If all characters of the serial number are not used, then mailers can pad the beginning of the field with either zeros or dashes. So a little bit about the actual makeup of the components within that container barcode. So now you've been looking at this slide for quite a while. So one of the other questions that we receive is around the placarding of full-service mailings. Container placards are usually required for full-service mailings, but there are some exceptions. And when discussing the exceptions, the following terms are important to understand. When I mention BMEU, that indicates that'll indicate mailings that are being presented by a customer at an actual BMEU. Processing facility would indicate mailings that are verified at a BMEU, but given back to a mailer to be taken to a processing facility. I think a general comment would be that container barcodes and placards are not required for small volume mailings that are entered at the BMEU and post offices. And we'll discuss that in the next upcoming slides. So, and before I go through these slides, I'll also mention that we do have on the RIBS page under Getting Started. So if you go to USPS.com, I'm sorry, not USPS.com. If you go to RIBS, RIBBS.USPS.gov, and you then, once on that page, if you click on Intelligent Mail Services, you'll see a drop-down box that will get you into another link that says Getting Started. Off of that Getting Started page, you will see a fact sheet that we've created in an attempt to clarify some of the rules around the placarding requirements. So, and these slides are also our attempt to simplify. So let's take a look at the full service. The first class letter mails and flats that are entered at a BMEU. And what we've done is we've tried to use the type of mail to dictate whether or not a container placard is or is not required for full service mailings. Because there are cases when no container placard is required. As an example, no container placard is required for a small volume mailing, which in this case would mean one of the following things. And is it fewer than 48 one-foot trays of letters? Is it fewer than 24 two-foot trays of letters? or is it fewer than 16 tubs of flats? Mailings that are under the minimum threshold, and these thresholds are set based on the DMM, and they are contained in mixed containers, meaning that they're not prepared for a single destination. They do not need a placard. For higher volume mailing, if the mailer separates the mail into different containers by destination, at one of the specified pre-sort levels, meaning it's 5-digit or origin, SCF or regular SCF, AADC, and so on, then a container barcode and a placard would be required. Separation must follow the requirements in the DMM, or in some cases, folks have a customer-supplier agreement. For a higher volume mailing of first-class letters and flats that is not separated into different containers by destination, no container placard would be required. Finally, for a mailer with a CSA or a customer-supplier agreement, higher volume mailings of first-class mail generally require containers with unique placards. In some cases, a CSA for a particular mailer might specify a minimum volume below, which a container is not required. Now this diagram here it shows when a placard is required for full-service first-class mail letters and flats entered at a processing facility. And if you remember, these were mailings that were verified at a BMEU, but taken downstream for later induction at another facility. No container placard is required for a small volume mailing, which in this case means that the same as for mail entered at a BMEU for mail in an APC. So those are the ones that the all-purpose containers. That is no container placard for a mailing in an APC if the mailing is, again, those same criteria, fewer than 48 one-foot trays, fewer than 24 two-foot trays, and fewer than 16 tubs of flats. Now, let me just take a step back. I envision lots of people writing frantically. This presentation will be made available. And as I mentioned before, these rules are outlined in this simplified document that we have on placarding that is located on that RIVS page. So I think the takeaway from these placarding rules is really that there are scenarios and situations where we are saying that a placard is not required. And this is one of the areas where it's my responsibility to get this information out to our acceptance units to make sure that our employees are well aware of what the rules are around the placarding. So in interest of time, I'm not going to go into much more detail on the placarding, other than to just, as I said before, remind you that these slides will be provided, and there is that fact sheet on RIVS, because I think I could spend the entire hour on placarding once I started talking about it. So we talked about the requirements around the intelligent mail barcodes at the piece, tray, and container level. Let's talk a little bit about the electronic documentation requirements. So what is eDoc is the question, and we did talk about this, right? It allows mailers to submit your information to us through electronic means. There are several key pieces of information that go into an eDoc submission. And that would include things like the postage statement information. We have the qualification report, or the qualification information that's contained within the eDoc. That's what gives us the data around the pre-sort and the facilities in which the mail will be entered. This is where the barcodes are for the mail pieces and the handling units and containers. This is how we can identify and look for uniqueness within that eDoc. This is also where we look for the identification of the eDoc submitter, the mail owner, and the mail preparer. The electronic documentation must include the postage statement information for a mailing, as well as the pre-sort information to support the creation of the qualification reports. Electronic documentation must include all of the required intelligent mail barcode data concerning the mail pieces, the trays and sacks, and the containers that are used in a particular mailing. There is an exception to providing the intelligent mail barcode information for simple mailings under 10,000 pieces. Mailings under 10,000 pieces are defined as a simple mailing if the mailer chooses to either apply the same serial number to every mail piece in the mailing or a range of serial numbers. That a simple mailing does not have to include the intelligent mail tray barcode or the intelligent mail container barcode. The mailer should include a record for every piece in the mailing, including the intelligent mail barcode. So within that eDoc, you're also describing how each mail piece is linked to a uniquely identified tray or sack. So if applicable, and how each mail piece and tray or sack is linked to a uniquely identified container. This is referred to as a nesting relationship. There is a special case of nesting involves logical handling units. In the case when multiple trays or sacks are created with the same pre-sort level and zip code destination, the mailer may treat this group of trays and sacks as a single logical unit called a logical handling unit. Within that eDoc, then, a mail piece is linked to the logical handling unit, which then indicates to us what group of trays or sacks that particular mail piece is in, rather than a specific handling unit or tray or sack. That physical unique identified tray or sack will also be provided in the electronic documentation as a sibling of that logical handling unit. So that's that special case where people are using logical handling units, and most of you will not be using that. That would not apply, but I wanted to at least mention it for some of those that may be on the call that do. Also required in that eDoc is the identification of the eDoc submitter, and that's for all cases, as well as the identification of the mail owner and the mail preparer, and again, that's known as that by-for relationship. So as we stated previously, the mail owner and the mail service providers must be identified within the eDoc. This identification, and there's been a lot of conversation about this, is called the by-for, where the mail is prepared by the mail service provider and the mail is prepared for the mail owner. The mail service provider and the mail owner may be different parties or may be the same party. As an example, when a mail owner submits their own mailing, they are essentially serving as their own mail service provider. The identification of a by-for information helps the USPS establish who prepared the mailing and for whom it was prepared. In full service, the mail owner is always required to be identified within the eDoc. And they can do that either by using the CRID, the MID, or the permit number, even if the mail owner is utilizing a mail service provider for all other aspects of their mailing. The mail service provider must identify themselves using the CRID or MID. The party that submits the eDoc, and that's more commonly known as the eDoc submitter, also must identify themselves using a CRID. If the mail owner wishes to direct the full service feedback data, such as address correction data or tracking data, to a third party to process for them, a MID should be used to identify the mail owner. This allows the data distribution capability to direct the Postal Service to forward this data to another party. Now, there is an exception to the by for requirement. If a mail service provider mails for multiple mail owners, and those mail owners have fewer than 5,000 pieces per mailing, those mail owners do not need to be identified within the eDoc to claim the full service discounts or automation rates, but will need to be included if the mail owner wishes to receive full service feedback. So again, less than 5,000 pieces, the mail owners do not need to be identified within the eDoc to claim any of the discounts. But if there is a desire to have some of the full service data, some of the full service feedback, then it would need to be included. Okay. Now I want to talk briefly about the Mail.dat, the Mail.XML, and the Postal Wizard. I mentioned before that there's three options for submitting. There are three options we'll talk about for submitting electronic documentation: are Mail.dat, Mail.XML, and the Postal Wizard. When a mailing with under 10,000 pieces does not require a qualification report, mailers may use any of the three submission methods to enter their mailing information. So those are those simple mailings for under 10,000 pieces. For mailings of 10,000 pieces or more, mailers must provide their electronic documentation through Mail.dat or Mail.XML. So less than 10,000, you can use all three. Over 10,000, you have the Mail.dat and the Mail.XML option. This documentation will include all of the required intelligent mail barcode data related to the mail pieces, the trays, and the sacks and containers. So mail pieces, handling units, and containers. When mailers separate their pieces of identical weight, or when the container postage is affixed to each mail piece in full-service mailings of less than 10,000, you are only required to submit the postage statement electronically. The Postal Wizard can be used in that instance to enter the postage statement online. When that postage statement is entered into the Wizard, it's automatically submitted to that post office electronically through the Postal One system. So again, that Wizard only accepts the postage statement and not any supporting electronic documentation. The Mail.dat method uses an electronic file that contains detailed information about the mailing itself. Mailers typically use commercially available software to generate their Mail.dat electronic files. Mail.dat uses a fixed file format to send mailing information to the Postal Service. Mail.XML is also an electronic file that contains information about the mailing. Like Mail.dat, mailers typically use commercially available software to create their Mail.XML electronic files. Mail.XML allows two-way conversational communication, letting the customer select data fields submitted. Typically what we see is the majority of our mailers who use one of these two file formats, the Mail.dat is the more commonly used format. And the mailing information that's contained in either the Mail.dat or the Mail.XML represents that postage statement and that qualification report for that particular mailing. There is a host of commercially available software products that will help mailers do things such as cleanse their addresses, do the pre-sort, mail prepare, submit those full service things using either that Mail.dat or that Mail.XML file format. Now, as we've gone down this path of meeting this requirement and this mandate in January, we've engaged the software vendor community to help us, help not only us but help our customers make this transition into this the full service requirement. So, as I mentioned before, that generally speaking, most customers will use commercial mail software to generate the Mail.dat and the Mail.XML files. And this commercial software, greatly simplifies the process. One type of solution these vendor offers is again for the Mail.dat and the Mail.XML. These solutions are for mailers who wish to use mailing software to not only prepare their pre-sort mailings, which is in most cases what most of you are doing now, so prepare the pre-sort mailings and generate those unique barcodes, but then to also submit the mailing information electronically to the USPS. A second type of solution these vendors these vendors offer is to be used in conjunction with the Postal Wizard. And these solutions allow mailers to use software to pre-sort their mail and generate the unique barcodes, but then use the Postal Wizard to submit the postage statement information electronically. So use the software to produce the mailing itself, but then you don't have that add-on of submitting that information electronically. You could just take that step by entering it in through the Postal Wizard. Now, you've heard me mention quite often our RIBS page, and if folks have not been, if you've not gone there yet, or if you've not gone there lately, I will be encouraging everyone to go take a look throughout the presentation, because it does have a lot of good information. On that site, we have a list of software vendors who have voluntarily tested their software with the Postal Service, and that list can be found on our RIBS page. And there is, off of RIBS, there's a section called the Certification section, where you'll be able to find a list of software vendors that offer full-service solutions, such as using Mail.dat and Mail.XML, or the Postal Wizard option that I just mentioned. There's a second document available that provides, so there's a summary, and then there's also a more detailed list of about the capabilities and offerings of each of the software vendors. And then this is a list of just some of the vendors who have worked with us, and that we have posted on the list that provides some of the more detailed information about the capabilities of the software that they have. On that same RIBS page, there's also a listing of post-pre-sort software vendors that have the ability to edit and consolidate Mail.dat files, which have already been pre-sorted using a different software. Talk briefly about, I don't know if most of you have heard, or some have heard, but there's a term called TEM, and what that is a test environment for mailers. And it's a test platform designed to allow mailers to test their ability to submit electronic mailing information, such as full-service mailings to the Postal Service. Mailers who are not using vendor software that has been tested in USPS, who are tested with the USPS, must test their files in TEM. So if you go back to think about the list that we just briefly talked about, if you're using a software vendor on that list, on those lists, you'd be able to begin submitting full-service mailings right away. If you, again, if you're a mailer and you're not using vendor software that has been tested, you must submit your test files through this TEM process. And on that same RIBS page, there are some documents that would explain the entire TEM process and what you would need to do to be able to submit those files to us in order to get tested.
Hey, Garrett.
Yeah.
Just as a process check here for the folks who are listening, we've got a bunch of questions, and we know that we're getting kind of late, but we will keep the webinar going as long as it takes to get through the questions. Yep. So just want to reassure everybody that we won't be curtailing the questions at the end if we run a little bit past the hour. So, yep. Okay, go ahead, Garrett.
Okay, Leo, thanks. Yeah, and I'm stepping it up a little bit here. So once the mailers go through TEM, they could submit their files to production using the Business Customer Gateway account, and we'll talk about that Business Customer Gateway, the BCG account in a moment. Again, I think that the biggest takeaway is that the instructions on how to use TEM and submit TEM, and when you're required to use TEM, this information can be found on the RIBS page, or the RIBS page. Okay. Let me just talk real quick about the getting started portion, which means the getting into the Business Customer Gateway to obtain such things as your MID. So the Business Customer Gateway, that's we've created to provide a single entry point for Postal Service online business services. Users can access their full service intelligent mail services, such as you obtain your account through the gateway. You can obtain a mailer ID for the use within your all of the intelligent mail barcodes. You can go through the gateway to test your eDoc submissions through that TEM environment. You go through the gateway to submit full-service eDoc files through the Mail.dat, Mail.XML, or the Postal Wizard. And then there's also view the postage transactions and the mail quality reports available through the gateway as well. So the gateway is definitely something you want to, there we go, is definitely, if you're not in the gateway now, it's something that you want to do soon. So to access the Business Customer Gateway, we have the URL listed here. I think the easiest way is, if you go to USPS.com and you go and look in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a link there for the gateway. When you get into the gateway, it will prompt the mailer to enter the name and the company information, including things such as your address. And what will happen then is the gateway will automatically assign the customer registration ID and a 9-digit mailer MID to that particular location. You can also link other locations to your profile through this process. Upon creating that new account, the customer's MID and CRID are displayed directly on the confirmation screen as shown above. So you will get, automatically, you will get a mailer ID and a customer registration ID upon signing into the Business Customer Gateway. For existing customers who have already been assigned a CRID, and you want to find this number on the BCG, the CRID can be found under the Manage Account menu in two places, and that would either be under the Manage Profile tab or the Manage Services tab. So if you've signed in years ago, last month, not sure what that CRID is, this is the area where you could go to actually find that. Sorry. Okay. Within the gateway itself, you also have the ability to link permit information. So before a mailer can view any of the mailing information on the gateway, the mailer's gateway account must be linked to the mailer's mailing permit, if one exists. There's two ways to do this, and I would also say that on that RIBS page, there is a guide on the Business Customer Gateway. And we also have additional webinars around the gateway itself. And so at the end of this webinar, I'll promote some of the webinars that we have going on, which you'll be able to get much more detail about how to do some of these things within the gateway. In the interest of time, I think I'll leave it at that. I think the important takeaway on this point of linking your permits is the fact that you have to be able to link that permit to your profile in order to have access to the reports and the data related to the mailings. We also get a lot of questions about obtaining additional mailer IDs. And so customers can obtain these additional mailer IDs through the Business Customer Gateway if you signed in and you go and you click on a link called Mailer ID, which will allow you to request for additional mailer IDs. So for physical mail-based barcodes, some customers will require more than one mailer ID to maintain barcode uniqueness. So for an example, a mailer owner may want 2 mailer IDs, which will be used by 2 different mail preparers for multiple mailings. 2 different and distinct MIDs are used to uniquely identify each vendor. So in this example, the existing customer would want to obtain another MID in addition to the MID that was automatically assigned. So from the favorite services panel, the customer can click the Mailer ID button. And then after the Mailer ID button is clicked, a new page appears titled Welcome to the Mailer ID System. And at that point, the customer would request a MID at the top of the page and follow the instructions, which is more the screen that's more forward on the slide itself. So if you're a mail service provider and you want to obtain an additional MID, the Business Customer Gateway also allows for you to go in and do that as well. So you can obtain individual or bulk MIDs and or CRIDs on behalf of your clients. So bulk requests allow for a file upload to retrieve those CRIDs and MIDs for up to 100 customers at a time. And this can also be done with the BCG via the Get MID/CRID link on the Manage Profile page within the gateway. Let's talk a little bit about the reports that we have available. And again, these reports will be accessed through the Business Customer Gateway as well, and we'll talk about the path on how to get to these reports here shortly. I mentioned earlier in the presentation that in the Federal Register, the Postal Service announced that in July of 2014, we were going to start to do something called an electronic verification. And what that means is that we were going to start to monitor the data quality of the full service submissions that the Postal Service receives. So we talked about a lot of things today. We talked about mailer IDs, barcode uniqueness, and STIDs. And so what this electronic verification process is a way for us to the electronic verification process is a way for us to go and look to see that these things are occurring, and the data is accurate. The good news is that we have a number of reports that are available today for folks that are already submitting their data to us through full service to start checking on the quality of the data that you're providing right away. And we have a few available to the eDoc submitter, and we have a set of reports that are available to the mail owner. And I won't be able to get into great detail in these reports, but the biggest thing that I want you guys to take away from this conversation is that these reports are available today. And if we've identified July 2014 as the target, then that means we still have time to be able to review these reports and the data to make adjustments before July of 2014. So the first report I'll talk about is something that we call the mailer scorecard. And the mailer scorecard is a summary of information based on a calendar month And within and from that scorecard, we're able to drill deeper into some more detailed report data about a specific metric. And when we talk about metrics, we're talking about, as I mentioned, uniqueness. So in a calendar month, from an eDoc submitter perspective, are you submitting unique barcodes through electronic documentation? Are you using an accurate mailer ID? Are you using the correct service type ID for the class of mail and processing category that you're putting it on? So those types of things are being displayed today in the reports, and I encourage everyone to start looking at that if in fact you are submitting full service mailing today. This is a summary of just some of the things that I just talked about, the scorecard. I'll briefly go over how these reports are accessed. Again, my idea was that since this will be posted for the members, you'll be able to use this to access the scorecard. On the RIBS page, under specs and guides, so RIBS, Intelligent Mail Services, Guides and Specs, there's a document posted that's called the Mailer Scorecard, and that will also contain the information on how to access the report. If you prior to getting your hands on this presentation. So you're going to access the gateway. You're going to log into the gateway. You're going to simply click on the link that says Mailing Reports. Right away, you'll see a link that says Mailer Scorecard, and then you would be able to access the report at that point. These are some of the validations that are performed within the report. As I mentioned, the mailer ID, the service type ID. We'll take a look at the by-for relationship, the uniqueness at the container, tray, and piece level. For some of our folks on the call that co-palletize their mail, we're going to make sure that an OCI file has been submitted with those mailings, and then finally we'll do a check of the entry facility that is being populated within the eDoc. This is strictly an electronic, an eDoc validation, meaning this has nothing to do with the piece itself. We're simply looking at the data within the eDoc to identify whether it's of good quality or not. This is just another screenshot of the scorecard itself. I'll announce some additional webinars that we have that will allow us to get into some greater detail about the mailer scorecard. I just wanted to point out here that by right-clicking on some of the links at the top of the scorecard, you have the ability to drill into some deeper level details about a particular metric that's being reported. So if we're reporting out that there is a uniqueness issue at a particular CRID, you would be able to right-click and then go and look specifically at the errors that are being recorded related to the uniqueness, if it's the uniqueness at the mail piece, for instance. So the mailer scorecard is used by the folks, the MSPs, the folks that are doing the submitting of the eDoc. We have another set of reports that are available for the mail owners. And it is our intention to create a mailer scorecard with a mail owner view. We just don't have that available yet. But again, it is our intention to create that. So accessing the mail owner reports, there are a number of reports on being able to get this information from a mail owner. You'll end up following the same path of being able to log into the gateway, go ahead and instead of clicking on the mailer scorecard, you'll click on the mail quality reports, and then you'll be able to click on the secondary window will pop up that you click on shared reports, which is over here. And then finally the mail quality folder. And there's also a document on RIBS that will get you the direct path on how to access these mail owner reports through that guide as well. There's one on the scorecard. There's one on the mail quality reports. The mail owner reports, they have different views. Again, it's not the scorecard, but the same data. It's just displayed in a little bit different way. And again, we'll talk about some webinars that we have that will get you into more detail on these particular reports. I apologize, I'm getting a little bit long-winded here, and I see we're up against the clock. Resources for mailers. This is that RIBS page we've been talking about. The Getting Started page has a lot of the information. There's also a Business Customer Gateway page. We have resources related to our mail piece design analysts and also our Postal One help desk. This next slide is the one I was speaking of, where we identified we have webinars that are going on beginning on November 12th, the 19th, and the 26th. And so our next webinar on the 12th is dedicated to full service MIDS and CRIDS. Then on the 19th, we have a full webinar dedicated to the Business Customer Gateway. And then finally, on the 26th of November, we have a webinar that's scheduled or dedicated to the full service feedback. Within that full service feedback webinar is where you'd be able to get some greater detail about the reports that I talked to you guys about in, what was it, about 4 to 5 minutes. So definitely one to, everyone should be interested in the data that we're being able to glean from all the electronic documentation and submission. So that one should be one that I would encourage everyone to make. Before I jump off of this slide, I do want to also mention that we've been holding what we're calling a full service open line call every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Along with these webinars, this full service open line call is promoted on that RIBS page under Education. So that's where you would go to get information on the webinars themselves. It's also where you would go to get this link to join these open line calls. And what we have is a number of Postal Service experts around full service. And we simply just open up the line and kind of kick it off, and for customers to just jump on board and just ask us questions. So even if you might not have a question, I think it's good to listen in on other folks' questions. Sometimes what we find is we'll open up the lines and it'll be sort of quiet, and then someone will ask a question, and that'll make somebody else think of another question, and it kind of works that way, where now we all of a sudden get a lot of questions. So I would encourage everyone to if you do have those questions, especially if we don't get through them today. I'm sure Leah will have a way for me to get at these questions, so make sure that we get an answer for all. But again, this open line call is another opportunity to get access to us from the Postal Service. Leo?
Yes, Garrett, thanks. I want to remind folks that if we do have questions that don't get answered today, we're going to send them over to Garrett, and they can be incorporated into a message back out to the participants. But if we have a few minutes here, I want to get through some of the ones we were sent.
And Leo, before you go on, I'm sorry, I just wanted to mention that I do have, if you hear my voice change, it's not me. It might be Beth is on to support me on this as well. So.
Yes, that's what I was going to mention, is that beside Garrett, we have Beth Bigelow from Accenture, who works with Garrett as a technical specialist. She's going to be around also to help out on some of these questions. First question is pretty simple. Will non-barcoded mail require eDoc?
Well, non-barcoded mail. So I'm assuming this is a non-barcoded mailing all by its lonesome would not require eDoc.
And if it's part of a barcoded mailing, of a full-service mailing, there are non-barcoded pieces, they have to be documented as well?
They would be documented as well.
Okay. Let's see, if you use Postal Wizard for less than 10,000 pieces, do you still have to upload the rest of the documentation, such as quality reports, electronically?
You do not.
Okay.
You would bring that into the acceptance unit, to help support the mailing and the pre-sort and so on, but it would not be required to be submitted electronically.
Okay. How often are the MicroStrategy reports refreshed?
So the MicroStrategy reports are, excuse me, there's a 48-hour, about a 48-hour delay from the time that, depending on what report we're looking at. So if we think about eDoc submission, you would, expect to see the data from that submission about 48 hours after that particular date. So they're continually being refreshed, but you won't see data real time.
Okay. If you're bringing 10 jobs to the way unit and all the documentations have been uploaded to Postal One using Mail.dat, what are you required to bring to the BMEU with the mail?
So what we would want you to bring to the BMEU is at least an understanding of the jobs that are that have been submitted electronically. So let me try it a different way. So when the clerks accept mail, they need to access this information that you've submitted electronically. So the clerks will typically do that by either maybe they have an understanding of the permit number that you use, and they could find the job on our in Postal One based on the permit number. If you have a job ID, you could provide that to the clerks. In the end, if you don't provide anything, the clerks will find it. It may just take them a little longer to search for it. If you want the process to go a little bit quicker, I would suggest providing them the job ID.
Okay.
Because then they can search the dashboard and find those jobs based on that job ID.
Okay. Now, here's a situation which I guess may occur to some folks. How do you cancel a job once it's been uploaded to Postal One if the client doesn't want to mail a job yet?
So you have the ability as a submitter to through the gateway to go ahead and cancel a job. So before finalization, so clerks will work through a process of validating the mail, perform the verifications, and finalize that postage statement. Once that has occurred, then the submitter would lose the ability to essentially cancel it. But if the submitter would want to cancel that job before all that happens, they would have the ability through the gateway to do that.
Okay. The permit fee waiver for mailings that are at 90% or better, it's cumulative, or is it over a one-year period, and how does that line up with the renewal period, such as if the renewal is due before the period of the 90% coverage is passed?
So the fee is due on May 1st. Ask me that question again, Leo. The permit fee waiver is if you have 90% or more over a 1-year period. But what happens if the 1-year period over which you count the 90% does not align with the renewal date of your permit renewal, of your permit imprint? So if it goes January to December and your permit runs June to June, for example.
So by definition, the year is calculated starting on your permit fee due date. So
okay,
if your permit fee is due on June 1st, your calculation would start on June 1st.
Okay.
For your 90% full service.
Okay. All right. So they're more or less lined up then.
They are absolutely lined up and will be unique for every permit that you hold potentially.
Okay. Thanks. One person asked a question that says that they have numerous mailings that do not meet requirements for palletization. Therefore, the placards are not created by their software, but they have implant verification where they're still required to put placards in all their mailings. And their question is, how do they make the placards if the software does not produce them for their mailings?
Yeah, this one has been a. I think I tried to address that a little bit when I mentioned, it's my responsibility to get out to the field to talk to them. So when we say in-plat verification, I'm going to assume that it's at a DMU, a detached mail unit where we have staff on site, and I'm going to I guess get from the question that our clerks are requiring our customer to place placards on these small mailings. That's a communication issue from my perspective, and getting that rectified and making sure our acceptance people understand, when a mailing should or should not be placarded.
And you have periodic conversations with your BMEU people, right? Like webinars stuff.
Yeah, we do. So I mentioned that open line call where we open up to our customers. We actually have a weekly call with the field as well. So,
well, if we have this problem continuing, then I'll ask our member company who had this question to send me a note, and I'll pass it along to you to go smack somebody in the head back someplace.
I will talk to them. Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Let's see. Currently, Postal One will not populate the prepared for info in the by-for relationship by the CRID number when submitting through Mail.dat. The only way to populate that information on the dashboard is to get a GOES permit assigned to that customer if they don't hold a permit at that office. This sounds complicated. Are there any plans to change Postal One so it populates the CRID numbers specifically for profit customers?
So I'm not aware, and I'll have to defer to Beth, maybe, but I'm not aware that Postal One is having an issue with Mail.dat not allowing any any identification.
Okay.
So I think what I would ask is maybe if I could get some, if they could send you some more specifics, Leo.
Sure. Yeah. Our member company who sent that, if they would email me a question, a little more background, I can send it over to Garrett, and we can get a better answer for you.
Sure.
Let's see. If we do mailings on behalf of our clients under their permanent imprint number and are not their sole vendor, how do we keep unique serial numbers?
Beth, I'll let you answer that one.
Take it away, Beth.
So there are a few options here, and you'll want to work with that mail owner to identify which one of those is going to be best. One option is definitely for them to take out a separate mailer ID for each vendor that they work with. So they would give you mailer ID number 1, they would give their second service provider they work with mailer ID number 2, so that you then have full control to maintain uniqueness. Another option that sometimes gets used is that they'll give you a range of serial numbers. So if they only have a single 6-digit mailer ID, they might let you know that you can use all serial numbers starting with 1, 2, and 3. And then they'll assign another mail service provider to the use of 4 and 5. So then you would just need to maintain uniqueness within that specific set. And then the final option is that sometimes mail owners will actually want to do the barcode assignments, and they'll give you, when they give you the address list to mail to, they'll have already assigned the serial numbers that they want you to apply on those specific pieces. It is entirely up to you to work with each of your mail owners individually to determine what the best solution for them and for you is.
Okay, thanks, Beth. Quick question, have the error tolerances that will impact future invoicing been identified?
Let me talk a little bit about what we've, how we're going about setting those thresholds and things. So on the scorecard today, but when you access that scorecard, there's a separate tab in the upper left-hand corner of the scorecard report. And that tab is identified or named as the threshold tab. When you click on that tab, you will see the thresholds that have been set for now. What we've done is we've taken a look at the data around the different areas that we are measuring, the MIDs, the STIDs, the uniqueness, and so on. And we looked across all eDoc submitters to help us identify where a reasonable threshold should be. In January and that's what is set right now. In January, we will take another look at it because we realize that we have more customers coming on board. We have new customers coming on board, and we will continue to use the national data to help us set those thresholds. So another way to look at it from my perspective is if understanding that we're having a lot of new customers come on board, and understanding that we're going to use these national data to help us set the threshold, my expectation is that the thresholds will either be the same in January as they are now, or they may be even a little bit lighter or less stringent. I mean, I don't think they are now, but again, we'll base it on what we see across the country and understanding that we're having new customers on board.
Okay.
The thresholds are published today. So if you go to your mailer scorecard, there's a tab at the top called Thresholds that you can click on, and you can view what we're using today. But as Garrett said, that could very well change in January.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Garrett. Thanks, Beth. Another question here. One of our members has pieces in every automated mailing that don't get a ZIP +4. And they're wondering if these can stay mixed in with their full service job or if they have to be separated out to another mailing.
They do not have to be separated.
Okay, that's good. That's a simple question, simple answer. Good. Are placards required if you use courtesy pallets?
I don't know what a courtesy pallet is. I do know what one is, but it's one of those that I defy to find a definition.
Yeah, they're unofficial pallets, I guess. They're pallets used to transport mail to the post office, but they're not really a pre-sort level.
Right.
So I guess in that case, you wouldn't have anything to put on the pallet, would you? Put on the placard, would you?
Yeah. This is an interesting conversation that I may not have a good answer for you at this point. I would, when I think about e-induction and moving forward and being able to scan containers into a facility, I would want frankly, I'd want a pallet placard on anything that shows up at a facility to be entered. But that's not what we have today. So the software providers have created their software to palletize based on the DMM requirements. And so we have I think what we're talking about are situations where the software is not generating a pallet placard, but yet it makes sense to throw that stuff, but to put the mail on a pallet to be easily transported.
Right.
We're taking a look at what we need to do to really allow for placarding on containers that are arriving at our facilities.
Okay. Can you give us an idea when Pay Anywhere, Mail Anywhere is going to come to fruition?
I think the first thing we should do is probably separate those two. I know when we started talking about it, it was Mail Anywhere, Pay Anywhere, and it kind of rolls off the tongue, don't it? But what I would do is I would start talking about them as individual programs. And so I think Pay Anywhere is much further down the road. But from a Mail Anywhere perspective, we should start to see some documentation being posted on RIBs probably within the next week or two about the criteria and so on, and rolling and getting that rolled out. We have the functionality. We're cleaning up some of the rough ends on what we need to do at the acceptance units and those types of things, but the functionality is there. So I would say within a week or two you'll see it on RIBs.
Very good. Okay, thanks. And a person who pays better attention than I do has pointed out that courtesy pallets are, in fact, official. There was a customer support ruling issued about those at some point in the past. But so I'll have to go research that and read it again. Another question here.
I thank them.
Yeah, yes. the customer, one of our members' customers, is in New York State area, and they process mail, generate paperwork for them, and then they send the mail from there. In other words, the service provider is preparing the paperwork for someone else who uses that and to mail from their location. So using full service, the provider would generate Mail.dat files, but will that provider's customer be able to modify them as needed if the actual mailing is different?
So I mean, there's
answer.
Yeah, I mean, there's always I think we want to define, where in the process this occurs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if there's obviously, if it can be updated or the file can be changed before the Postal Service has it. If it's after the Postal Service has it and before finalization occurs on the postage statement itself, then there are ways for an update to be done. I guess what I'm thinking of is this a case of like spoilage?
Yeah, I think it's a situation where after the data processing work is done and the file is set off for production, that some things happen so the mail as produced is not quite the same as it was supposed to be based on what the documentation describes. So there's some way to go back and adjust, in this case, the documentation to match what actually happened.
I mean, the simple answer is yes, but I think there's other criteria, that we'd have to talk through,
Okay.
timing and when it occurs.
And exactly what's involved. Okay. How far ahead do you have to upload the eDocs before they're available to the clerks?
On the, for some of the larger mailings that we've seen, we can, definitely see a couple-hour process, if not even a couple-hour plus two. But for job, but those are jobs that are, millions and millions of pieces. But for for jobs that are, I'd have to think about the piece range. But I think a typical is I mean, we're not seeing much delay at all. And Beth, maybe you know a little bit more. I'm only thinking of the big jobs. With the medium to smaller jobs, I think we're getting relatively quick turnaround from submission to upload.
Okay.
Yeah, so 98% of mailings take less than 30 minutes to upload and generate a postage statement. It's really only the largest one. So if it's a multi-million piece mailing, that might take longer than that. If you're, regardless of which eDoc method you're choosing to use, however, you will get you can monitor the status of that job. So you would get messaging, either an XML response message or in the Mail.dat client. You can look at the status of your upload and be able to tell when the mailing has been completely uploaded, so the clerk at that point would be able to pull up the statement.
Okay. Well, we're about 3:30 here, so I tell you what, for the folks on the line here, we have more questions to go, so if any of you are worried about getting your questions answered, Michelle is going to compile all of them into one nice, neat list, send them over to Garrett. Garrett will hopefully send some answers back to us, and we'll send them the questions we've asked already, too, so you can see what they look like. And
I was going to ask that as well, Leo, because it does help us craft our upcoming messages and things to make sure that we include all of the questions that we get.
Sure. So we'll get all those over to you, and then if we know at such point you can get them back to us, we'll send them out to all the folks who are on the call today. How's that sound?
That sounds real good.
And hopefully that'll take care of everything. So thanks, Garrett, and thanks, Beth. We're all finished our Q&A session today. And I guess this pretty much concludes our program, full service IMB, ready or not, and I hope people are getting a little bit readier now. So thanks again to Garrett and Beth for helping us, and to our sponsor, AccuZip. And this concludes today's program. We want to thank everyone for calling in and participating. The webinar will automatically end at the end of the webinar, and you'll be directed to an online evaluation. Please take a few minutes to answer the survey and give us your feedback. That'll help us improve our programming in the future. So again, thank you very much to everybody. We'll talk to you later, and tune into the Postal Points webinar next week. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye.
What was